Alright, welcome back guys, or welcome if this is your first time here. I'm Vision here with Blind Entertainment, bringing you guys another video. Today I'm going to be doing my review of The Walking Dead Season 9 Episode 6, What Comes After. Now if The Walking Dead is something you're interested in, don't forget to subscribe down below and hit that bell icon. That way you don't miss any more Walking Dead content from me in the future. Now let's begin. So first we start with Daryl today. We're going to talk about Daryl. As we saw at the end of last week's episode, before the time jump, he walked into the woods and it's been presumed he's been living there. We see him in the beginning for a few shots, catching fish, surviving out there on his own. And at the end of the episode, we see him reconnect with Carol. Not much to go off of here. We just know he's been living in the woods since Rick's death, or since his presumed death in his perspective. So I'm interested to see where they take that, what goes on there. Definitely something I'm interested to see play out and see what's going on with Daryl in next week's episode. But other than that, not much else to talk about in this episode regarding Daryl. Moving on, we got the Kingdom story, and we see Carol and Ezekiel have married, and a lot of people regard her as the Queen of the Kingdom, and they're raising Henry together, and Jerry especially refers to them as like the Queen and the Prince, and Henry's trying to keep the kingdom going. It's kind of falling apart. And they decide, and he's been trying to talk to Ezekiel and to let him go study under Earl at the hilltop to become a blacksmith. Now he's adapting Carl's storyline from the comics. Now I like this. I was nervous that they were going to do this, but it makes sense now. When they do this stuff with the kingdom where it's falling apart, he wants to learn and study under Earl so he can fix it and repair the kingdom and get it back up and running. It makes sense. The storytelling there is correct. I like how they did that. And they got Ezekiel, who's worried about Henry going over to the hilltop, and you got Carol, who's escorting him over there. Love this stuff. My one thing here is I'm not big on Carol's new hairstyle. I don't know, to me, she's reminding me of like Mags from Hunger Games, and it's like Henry's John Finnick. I don't know. That's just my little observation there. But I don't know, it's just not something I'm fond of Carol's new hairstyle. I hope she ends up cutting it maybe towards the Whisperer War or something once we get introduced to the Whisperers. I don't want this long-haired Carol. I don't like it. It's just kind of annoying. But that's just my own personal thing. But so we got Carol escorting Henry over to the hilltop. And while they're on their road, they hear screams for help. So Henry goes over to check it out to help out whoever it is. And it's revealed to be Regina. And it's a trap, and Jed shows up and ambushes the two of them in the alleyway, and he demands all their stuff, and they take it, and then he even demands Carol's ring, which she gives. Henry tries to protect her and fight back, but ends up getting knocked down, and the two of them are forced to retreat and go on their way without anything else. Later that night, then we see Henry and Carol talking, and we got Henry telling Carol, you taught me how to stand up for yourself. You stand up for others and do what's right, which inspires Carol to go and confront them again. And she pours gasoline on them while they're asleep, and then ignites them and setting them on fire, and they die, and they are killed, burned alive. Now, I really like that. I love that. I really love the scene between Jed and Carol in that moment as well, because you got Jed begging for his life. It's like a callback to season 5 when you got Terminus, where Gareth was begging on his knees for Rick to spare him. And they even say the same thing, like, you'll never see us again. And Carol brings up this good point where she says, you have stuff that belonged to other people, hinting that maybe he hurt other people. But Jed says, no, we didn't hurt them, we just took their stuff. And then you got Carol, who just burns them alive and walks away, gets her ring back, and just leaves. So I like how they did that. I really like the stuff between Jed and the Marauders from the Saviors. Really great stuff. And you see later on that so many other Saviors have joined the other communities. Jed even mentions that the factory is going to bust, meaning it's pretty much on its last legs, or even gone at this point, which I think is good storytelling. It frees up space for bottle episodes because we don't have to go back and forth between another community. With the Sanctuary gone, that frees up space for that. We don't get bottle episodes. Plus, they could use that space for filming other areas in The Walking Dead. So I really like that. Great storytelling and just a great introduction to some great characters. And we get rid of our antagonist for the first half of the season being Jed right in this episode, right at the same time as we are introduced to our new big bads of the season. Next, we got the stuff going on with Alexandria. As we saw at the end of last week's episode, we got Magna and her group. They arrive at Alexandria. They're taken in by the group. Pretty much Judah says she won't return home if they don't bring her, and Aaron, Rosita, Eugene, and Nora are forced to bring them back. And we get a scene where it's like a tension-filled moment as Michonne returns back, and Michonne is kind of iffy about taking him in. They've kind of there's been a change in Michonne in these past 6 years, and she's iffy about taking in new survivors. And I really like how they did that front view of the Alexandria as they walked in. That was pretty cool there. And then we got Magna and her group. So right off the bat, I'm gonna go talk about the actors and the characters themselves. Really like Luke. He's probably one of the standouts so far. He might die due to his comic death. I'm 50-50 on that. Connie and Kelly, cool, not much going on there. I know a lot of people are making a big deal about her being deaf and Connie and all this. To me, I'm okay, not like something crazy about it. It's not like they're doing much like crazy stuff about it. But then you got Magna. Magna, I'm iffy on. I don't know if they got the right casting for Magna. I don't know. Nadia Hicker, I think that's how you pronounce her name. I liked her on the 100. It fit her there. But on The Walking Dead, I don't know how I feel about her as Magna. But moving on from there, I'm going to give her a few more episodes, see how I feel about her, and get back to you when we do the mid-season finale review. But moving on, they decide they're going to have a council meeting and bring them before the council. So I really like that. We see the council meeting and you see Gabriel, Aaron, Laura, Michonne, and a few other Alexandrians are on the council. And during the council meeting, we find out, their occupations. Magna was a truck stop waitress. Luke was a music teacher, and Connie was a journalist. And they are during the meeting, Michonne notices a prison tattoo on Magna's arm. Now, this is one issue I have with the show. Now, we just got off a 6-year time jump, and from what I've heard from behind the scenes and everything, we're 12 years into the apocalypse, give or take a few years here or there, 10 to 12 years, let's go there. And Magna is about, I know the actress is 29, so she's around early 30s. Now, think about this way. If she's early 30s, say 30 to maybe 35, somewhere around there, 10 years and 10 or 15 years, she would have only been in her early 20s. And Michonne says she's done a hard time. I don't know. I know there's prisons out there that, 1 or a couple years could be hard time, but I don't know. When I think of hard time, I think of maybe a decade. I feel like that was an error on the writer's part. Like they should have gone through this and looked at how old she was. That way they could check their bases. I feel like saying that Magna did hard time is iffy. It's something that is sounds impossible to happen, and I feel like they're just trying to build up tension there, and I don't like that. I feel like it's very inconsistent with storytelling with the age of Magna. But moving on, you got Magna, who's suspicious of the group. She's has to hand over a knife at the council meeting, which Michonne finds, and later on she hands over another knife she is holding on to that belonged to Yumiko, who was in the infirmary for getting hurt. And you got this, Magna decides later on to go and hand it over to Michonne, and she does, and she talks about how, we've done stuff, I've done things to survive, and Michonne kind of sympathizes with her there, saying, we've all done these horrible things to survive. So, I really liked it. I'm iffy on Magna right now. Casting-wise, I'm still iffy. But overall, really liked the introduction. My one big con, though, is I'm very mad that they didn't do the introduction like in the comics. The episode was 10 to 10:20. They couldn't have added 10 more minutes to do the proper introduction. I mean, we hear them mention Bernie in the water being talked to by the council, but we should have seen that. I wish they had done that. That's my one big con with the episode. I wish they had done that. I'm very mad that they didn't do it, and I'm just annoyed that they didn't do it. It was such a great iconic scene from the comics, and I just wish they had done that. That's just one of the things that really frustrated me with this episode, because I really wanted to see them do it. I was hoping that scene from last week was a little snippet, and we get the whole introduction this episode. But I don't know. It just wasn't something I liked. I just wish they had done the whole introduction like in the comics. But overall, like I said, very much enjoyed the introduction to Magna's group. Next, moving on, we got Michonne. We see Michonne's going to the bridge talking to Rick. And I really like how they didn't rebuild the bridge. It kind of harkens back to what Negan said to Rick back in episode 2, where it's like a monument to the dead, and pretty much it is now a monument to like Rick, since they think he died. And Michonne's like talking to Carl and Rick, going back to like stuff that happened to her back in season 3, and we see Judith is noticing it and is kind of, I don't know how how she feels about that. We don't get to see that, but she understands it, I guess. And we see Judith getting a relationship with Negan, like he's giving her advice. I really love the dialogue they have between the two of them regarding the dog, and how Judith wants to help them, and how he uses the dog idea as like a way to describe this situation. I really like how they did that. That was a really cool thing. And then you got one of my favorite scenes, and it's a very beautiful and sad scene in the episode where Judith comes down and you see her talking with Michonne about how she wants to help them, but she's also, and then we get into her talking about how she's forgetting Rick and Carl's voices. I really love that scene. That's a beautiful scene. Personally, I mean, for someone who's seen people go for that kind of stuff, and I've gone for that personally, I love that scene. It's such a beautiful scene, such a sad scene at the same time, though. It's like one of those scenes where it's beautiful and sad at the same time, and it really works well for the show in itself. And then after she goes to bed, you see a kid cub run out, and it's revealed that this is Rick and Michonne's son. Now, I know a lot of fans are making a big deal about this. Oh, Rick and Michonne had a son or whatever. I don't, personally, for me, it's not a big deal. It's like, okay, they had a son. This son is pretty much now Judith 2.0, no offense, but it's like, he's not going to do anything up until he gets to be like Judith's age. So it's like, he's just Judith 2.0. So it's just like, I don't care. Like, sure, okay, that's cool. They had a son. That's okay. But like, it doesn't do much story wise unless something comes up of it later. Also, on the note of Michonne, we see that she also has this new scar on her back, so I'll probably get some details regarding that. But moving on into the next day, Michonne has had a change of heart, and she decides she's going to take Magna and her group over to Hilltop, and she asks Sadiq to accompany them as he is Yumiko's doctor. So they're heading over to Hilltop. Very interested to see what goes on there, and if they end up staying at Hilltop, or if they end up kind of building up this bond and returning to Alexandria. But really like what they do with Magna's group in this episode. Really like the introduction, and interested to see where they take it moving forward in the rest of the season. Last, we got Father Gabriel, and it's revealed that him and Rosita have formed a relationship, and he talks her into taking Eugene out further and trying to look for people after finding Magna's group. So they go out looking for people. They end up set up to radio, but a herd shows up, and Eugene has to jump after knocking down the ladder on his way down, and they end up having to run, and they're running, and they are trying to escape the saviors. We see that Eugene kind of has feelings for Rosita, but he doesn't tell her because she tells him, "Don't make this weird." And they end up running and hiding under that embankment, and we got our first introduction to the new antagonist, the Whisperers, where you hear them say, "Where are they?" Along they even expand on that, where they say, "Don't let them get away," and they gotta be close. So I really like that very creepy scene. Love the cliffhanger ending, and excited to see where they take it moving forward with the introduction to our new antagonist. I really love what they did with the episode, and if I had to give this episode a rating, I'd probably give it an 8.5. The Magna introduction really hurt this episode for me. But other than that, really enjoyed the episode and excited to see where they take it moving forward as we get closer to the mid-season finale. So yeah, guys, that's my review of The Walking Dead Season 9, Episode 6, What Comes After. As always, if you like this video, don't forget to give it a big thumbs up and share. Don't forget to subscribe down below and hit that bell icon. That way you don't miss any more Walking Dead content from me in the future. This has been Vision here of Blind Entertainment, and I'll see you next time.